Welcome to Collecting Chaos. My name is James, and today we're going to talk about comic books and creases right after this. That's right. Today our subject is comic books and creases and how they affect the grade. Now, we're not going to talk about anything else and no other parts of the comic except creases. First of all, there's two different types of creases. You have a crease that's a bend that doesn't break color, and when these are very small and along the spine, part of the spine stress on the spine, they're called ticks. And then there are color breaking creases. Okay. You can have a bend in a comic. If it doesn't break color, it's still a bend. It's still a defect. But if it doesn't break color, it's not considered a crease, just a bend. Does that make sense? Of course not. None of this makes sense. Comic grading doesn't make sense, but that's the way it is. So here we have a bend, and we're not going to really talk about those too much. I have a couple of examples that I'll show you, but in general, I'm not going to worry about those. The ones that I'm concerned with are the ones that break color. And the first thing you need to know about grading comics is if you have a crease, no matter how small, if it breaks color, it is not high grade, period. Which means if you have a color breaking crease, even a 1/8 inch one, and I think I have an example of that here somewhere in one of these comics. Yeah, here's a good example. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but right here, there is a color breaking crease. It's small. It's really small. And this is what I use to measure creases with. I generally like to use the millimeter side, but for this video, since a lot of the people that watch are from the United States, I'm going to use imperial inches. That crease is about 1/8 of an inch. There's no way this comic can be high grade, that's very fine plus or better, 8.5 or better, with that crease. It's automatically, because of that one little crease, automatically very fine 8.0 or lower. Now let me show you an example of a comic with no creases. Sharp corners, no creases on the corners, absolutely no creases on the spine. This comic is high grade. I'm not going to tell you the exact grade because whatever I say, somebody's going to disagree with. When you get into high grades, everybody disagrees with everybody. Here's another one. Another really nice. This is a high grade, barely. I consider it to be an 8.5. If you look, I don't know if you can see them or not, but it has a number of little ticks along the spine. This one does not break color, but it is a tick. It's a dent. Those can be removed by a competent... Actually, that one does break color. Sorry. Okay, this one can't be above an 8.0 either. That one does actually break color now that I look at it more closely. But those little ticks that don't break color, you can remove them if you know how. A competent presser will always be able to get those out. So there's two examples of a crease that break color. Now, even if your spine is perfect, but you have a 1/8 inch crease in the corner here, that still would drop it down to 8.0. You're not allowed any color breaking creases on a comic book and have it above an 8.0. If it has a color breaking crease, it is not a high grade comic. It's always going to be an 8.0 or lower. Now, when you get into 7.5, you got a little more leeway. I would allow up to a 1/4 inch crease. Does this one have that? I'll have to measure it to be sure. This one is, okay, it's just to the right of my ruler, right about here. And it is just shy of a 1/4 inch. So if that's the only defect, then yeah, this could be a 7.5. If I had a couple of creases like that were less than 1/8 of an inch, I would probably still consider it an 8.5. Unfortunately, this one has more than that. Now here we have, I don't know if you can see this, but this actually has a bend here. Does not break color. Maybe if I took it out of the plastic. And most of these comics that I'm showing tonight or today, I have offered up for sale, and they are still available for sale if you want it. There are a couple that aren't, and I'll let you know what those are. Oh, there, you can see the bend now. It's definitely a crease, but it does not break color. So while that would lower the grade, it can be pressed out. So that's the difference between a bend and a crease. A bend can be repaired or removed with pressing. A crease cannot. Now, going a little further, a 6.5 fine plus. If you have a 1-inch crease, you can probably get away with that without a problem. People won't argue too much. Or maybe several smaller creases, as long as they're less than about 1.5 inches. If you add them all together, you're still going to be okay grading it at about a fine plus. Go further down, you get about, you're starting to get into about the 2-inch range to a fine comic. Now you're starting to worry about eye appeal a little bit. And when you start doing that with 6.0, 2 inches, you could probably get away with a 2-inch corner crease and still call it a fine 6.0. Or several 1-inch or smaller creases that were, as long as it's less than 2.5-inch total length. And I can't stress enough about the total length. Because if you have like 8 1/8-inch creases along the spine, consider that fine. I mean, you're talking about 2 inches. Or 8 1/4 inch or lower, talking about 2 inches. Yeah, you could probably get away with calling that fine. Then we get to fine minus. Now, fine minus, we start getting into longer creases, and in particular, I thought I had an example of one. Well, yeah, I do. This She-Hulk here. If you look at this crease here, it is a little under 4 inches, 3 3/4 inches. So if that was the only crease on this book, you could probably get away with calling it a fine minus. Or, several creases, as long as they're less than 5.5 inches. No. As long as they're less than 5 inches total, you can probably get away with that. But there's a caveat to that. It cannot detract from the eye appeal. Now, what is the eye appeal of a comic? This is something that I've been asked many times, and I'm going to tell you right now. When you hold a comic up and you look at it at arm's length, you want to hold it at arm's length. That tells you the eye appeal. This comic here, when I hold it at arm's length, the cover peel is amazing. This one, of course, it has a multiple defects. When I hold it at arm's length, not so much. When you start getting into eye appeal, it affects it. But that's important to know what eye appeal is, because that determines the grade of the comic to it. And I have a good example of that I'm going to show in a few minutes. So 5.0, 6 inches you could get away with. This is very good to find. You could get away with 6 inch, 4 inch or less, or several 4 inch or less creases. As long as it's under 7 inches total, you're probably pretty good, provided it doesn't affect the eye appeal. Now, go to a 4.5, 8-inch crease. And I think this one actually is an 8-inch crease. It might be longer. It is exactly 8 inches. And this comic is not for sale. It is part of my collection. See that long crease right here? This is 8-inch crease. If that wasn't where it is, it might you might consider this, a VG plus, a very good plus. But because it detracts from the overall appeal of the comic when I hold it at arm's length, if it was down here, now ignore that ring, that's not important right now. But if it was down here, maybe not a big deal. But it goes right through the head of Black Beauty. So because of that, it detracts from the eye appeal of the comic. I would grade it lower than a 4.5, even though it's only an 8-inch crease, which is quite a pretty good sized crease if you think about it. I couldn't go. I would probably drop this. If that was the only defect, I would probably drop it down to 3.5, maybe a 4 VG or VG minus. As it is, this is a good copy because it has a lot of defects on it. And like I said, that one's part of my collection. It's not for sale. The ROM Space Knight, the Secret Wars 2 #1, the She-Hulk that I showed, and even the Red Sonja that I showed. All of those are available for purchase. You can hit me up on Instagram or down in the comments if you're interested in them, and we can talk about it. Now we're getting to 4.0. Very good. I dug out another comic out of my collection to show you this. See this crease here? It's book length. It breaks color. Your first thought is there's no way he's going to say that it's a 4.0. It is. It is considered 4.0. A starting grade would be 4.0. And the reason for that is this is a subscription crease, and people make allowances for subscription creases that they don't make necessarily for other types of comics or other types of creases. Because a subscription crease, they would fold the comic in half and mail it to you. And that's the way it was sent from the publisher. So it is a subscription crease is technically a publisher's defect. And as such, you could grade, if all else was perfect, you could grade it as a 4.0 without a problem at all. Even with a few minor defects on the side, you could probably still get away with a 4.0. That's important to know because we're going to go back to this She-Hulk comic, because the next category is 3.5, and this is the lowest mid-grade comic you can get is a 3.5. It's VG minus, very good minus. As you can see, this has a book length crease in it too. So you're thinking, oh, well, if that's a book length, yeah, we could do 4.0 on that too. No, you can't, because this is not a subscription crease. This is just a regular crease. So that automatically, by itself, would drop it to 3.5. Now, here's the thing about book length creases. Because it drops the comic so far down, you could have a book length crease and multiple other creases. As long as it does not affect the eye appeal of the comic, 3.5 is fine. Now this one, I'm sure you can tell if I took it out, you could tell a little bit better. But it has a book length crease here. It has another one here. It has other creases here. It has some damage up here. There's enough damage to this comic that the most it would grade would be a 3.0. So this is low grade and would go somewhere between a 0.5 and a 3.0. It's the way it is. That one crease can do that to a comic. So book length crease with multiple creases of any length, doesn't matter how long they are, that affect eye appeal is going to make it a low grade comic. A book length crease or multiple creases that do not affect eye appeal, doesn't matter their length, they don't affect eye appeal, you could still end up with a very good minus. And that's pretty much it. But I left something out. Let's say you have a comic that looks like this. Okay. Now, this has some dimples. I don't really see any color breaking creases on it. I could say it's a high grade copy, but I would put it at the lowest because it's got multiple dimples or spine stress. If it has a crease on the inside, if the page is folded over and you unfold it, but you can still see the crease, can't be high grade. You cannot have a color breaking crease even on the inside of the comic and still be a high grade comic. Inside creases count too, which is unfortunate because I've gotten comics, brand new comics, that a page was folded over on the corner and cut strange because of it, but it's a defect, and it's not, even though it's a publisher's defect, I would still drop that down into the mid grade somewhere. I don't even know how far I would drop it down. So that's really all I have to do to talk about creases today. If you want to get a little further into it, I do recommend getting a metal ruler with the cork back so that you can measure your creases. And like I said, I gave you inches, but I normally use the millimeter side because it's more accurate. It's when you're talking about stuff like that, it's a whole lot more accurate. That's going to be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good time. We'll see you next video, and probably on Tuesday. I don't know. I might drop another one tomorrow. I don't know. This video was late because I made up my notes, and before I could print them out, I had a power outage. I blew a circuit breaker is what happened, and I lost I lost my notes before I could print them. So yeah, that happened. Yeah, so there you go. That's creases. Not hard. Easy stuff to learn. If you take this stuff one item at a time, it's easy to learn, and easy to learn how to grade comics. I'm just giving you the guidance. We'll get into some more grading on a later date. But in the meantime, everybody, have yourself a great week. And be sure to check us out on Friday nights on Horizon Picks Auction. I've been streaming them over on mine too, so if you just want to watch and you're not really interested in buying anything, by all means, come over to my channel and watch it, or watch it afterwards. And if you do see something you want that I'm offering for sale, you can reach out to me on Instagram, Kollecting Kaos, all one word, on Instagram, or any of my videos down below. You can always ask if the comic's for sale. The worst I can do is laugh at you. So like I would if you wanted that Green Lantern, I'd laugh at you. Because that's mine. It's not for sale. The Green Lantern isn't for sale. The Black Beauty comic isn't for sale. Everything else I showed tonight is available if you're interested. Yeah. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and you like the video. If you don't like what I do, don't subscribe. Uh, Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you want to do, and leave a comment. It's good for my algorithm. It's good to get to get more people to see my videos so that I can help more people learn.